Steve McCain.
Father in heaven, creator of all things, we thank you for your love, your watch care, and your grace. We ask now that you would guide us in this meeting. We pray for your wisdom. We ask now that you be with our military personnel all over the world, especially their families here. Father, we pray for our nation, and especially our leaders. Be with each one of us as we make decisions for our nation. Father, we pray everything will be done decently and in order. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Carmen. Roll call, Ms. Shelley.
Meredith Bailey. Bill England.
Here.
Bill John Baker.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Buzzer.
Here.
Julia Coates. Bradley Cobb. Joe Crittenden.
Here.
Jody Fishinghawk.
Here.
Janelle Fulbright. Don Garvin. Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Here.
Tina Glory Jordan.
Present.
Curtis Snell.
Here.
Chris Soap.
Here.
Kara Kellen Watts.
Honey.
We do have a form.
Thank you. Okay, our business will be discussed and possible action of amendments to the election code, and I guess we'll let our attorney, Mr. Henry, take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologize for being absent last committee meeting, but in that regard, there was a few proposed amendments considered last month. Two were accepted, which were housekeeping. Two were tabled. I have forwarded many more proposed amendments over the last month. I guess what I would ask the committee, do you want to take up the two that you tabled, or do you want to just continue on?
What's the pleasure of the committee? Yes.
I would ask that we consider and go back and take care of those two that we tabled, and then that brings us to date, and we can move on after that.
Okay. Everybody in agreement with that? Okay, Todd, we'll just do that.
Okay. Well, the first one that was tabled was an amendment to section 21C, which is voting by districts. The idea being that to delete that, to bring it in accordance with the new Constitution, to delete that section where a non-resident registered voter who wished to change their district or precinct may re-register it for a new district or precinct. This is where previously at-large voters could pick a district to be in. To vote in within the jurisdictional boundaries. This is the one that you were...
I'm handing out the amendments, and the amendments are behind them.
The minutes.
The minutes from the last meeting, yes.
And then the amendments that were tabled were...
Are behind them.
Are behind it. If you have your election code in front of you, it would be Chapter 3, Section 21C, 3 and 4. If we can get all mine clear on that.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes.
Was this where we were trying to figure out if there was a way to allow the at-large people to re-register? I guess that would take a constitutional amendment, wouldn't it?
From the reading of your minutes, that's what you all discussed, was a possible constitutional amendment to allow a new chance for at-large voters or non-resident voters to have one more chance to register within the Cherokee Nation. That will require a constitutional amendment via resolution by the council to put it on the next ballot.
I'd like to ask you to draft that and bring that forward.
Okay.
And give them 1 year effective from, if it were to be adopted, give them 1 year from that adoption date to re-register.
What we also might consider, 1 year from the date of the adoption of the amendment. They approved, yeah, okay. I'll go on that language. But one thing that I understand that there, has been a couple of constitutional amendment ideas floating out there. Our next scheduled election is 2011 in July or June. It might be contemplated to have a special election concerning these constitutional amendments, because obviously the people who live outside of the jurisdictional boundaries, they're going to basically, I guess, skip an election as kind of my thought process. So if you want them to have an opportunity to vote in the 2011 election, this resolution that you're having you may also contemplate having a special election. Now, that's just food for thought out there.
Yes.
How do you say they're skipping an election? They can vote. They
Well,
can
no,
vote for the respective at-large council person. They vote for the chief and the deputy chief. How do we rationalize spending $200,000 or $300,000 to have an early election? I didn't think we could rationalize it before. I certainly hope this council will take into account a special election cost us about $200,000. How do we rationalize that to the people that we're spending that money when we can wait till the next election to put anything that we need on that ballot? And I am very comfortable that the constituents I represent are smart enough to figure out how they want to vote for a question and who they want to vote for that's on that ballot. And that was the argument last time that I didn't agree with. It was almost like our people weren't smart enough to see that part of it was going to be a question and part of it was going to be somebody running for a particular office. I just can find no rationale to have a special election, and I'm a little bit at a loss for Todd, you saying that they're going to not be participating in the next election. They have all the ability in the world to participate in the next election.
What I meant to say and what I meant to convey is this, that if it is the will of the body to allow these people who live outside of the jurisdiction to basically re-up or have a new opportunity to re-register within a district in the Cherokee Nation, if you don't have a special election, they won't get another. They'll have to skip this election. So in order to have that opportunity to choose, they will have an opportunity to vote on at-large districts, chief, deputy chief. My intention was not to convey that they will not be able to participate. My intention was to state that if you don't have a special election, the next time that they'll be able to vote or get an opportunity to re-register will be in 2015. And like I said, I just throw it out there just as, I'm not recommending it. I threw it out there as like I said, food for thought.
But they're not skipping. I don't like the word skipping. They're not skipping an election. They can involve themselves in the electoral process.
Undoubtedly.
It's just
They
like
skip an opportunity.
somebody in Cherokee County wanting to vote in Rogers County. We're not letting them move over there unless their residence is right. I guess in Rogers County, if they move to Rogers County, they can vote there. If they still live in Cherokee County, they have to vote in our election.
And that constitutional amendment's not, wouldn't affect those people.
Is that all, Ms. Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay, I have Councilor Baker next.
And we just passed a new constitution, and this was one of the items that was on it. And everybody had an opportunity to register. And those that chose not to are well represented with Councilor Baker and Councilor Coates. What would be the purpose of opening it up to the to go against the newly passed Constitution or to change it?
I'm not going to advocate this one way or the other, folks, okay? I put it out there as a suggestion. You all make those decisions. Now, what I would suggest to the committee is that we discuss the amendments as proposed. Ms. Calvin Watts has asked me to draft a resolution to call for a special election or to call for a constitutional amendment. When that is done, this will be brought forward to the Rules Committee, and you all can debate that and vote pro or con one way or the other. But right now, what we're I don't want to get bogged down in a debate on whether we're going to have a constitutional amendment or not when we have these election amendments on the board. We got sidetracked real quick by me, what I thought was making a friendly bit of information if you wanted to consider a special election or not. I apologize.
Councilor Garvin?
That brings up a good point. Take Cherokee County or Sequoia County. Those people from California or wherever, how are they going to choose whether to go with the east side of Sequoia County or the west? They're going to have to choose.
You're going to pick a number.
How's it going to happen?
Well, I mean, they obviously.
Same in Cherokee County
Okay.
and others.
It is, I can't tell you why they would make such decisions. Some decisions, they'll just say, I want number one because it's the first one. Some they might make a decision that, well, my great-grandfather or my family lives in NICUT, so I'm going to choose that district. I mean, it just really depends. I mean, they may just throw a dart and hit a number. I don't know. But, if you're going to give them that opportunity, that's how, you all don't have to give them an opportunity. That's, like I said, that is a debate really for another day on a proposed constitutional amendment. Any constitutional amendments have to be, can be suggested by the tribal council via resolution.
So as it stands now, the election board will put them in one or the other?
As it stands right now, they're at large, period.
But where are they going to vote?
They'll vote at...
One or two? They're in Cherokee County. They live in California. They already have chosen Cherokee County. So they're going to
the people that,
one or two.
They're going to have an opportunity to pick a number. I don't know.
They, the voter in California, will be.
I would assume that the voter would get the opportunity to choose. That would be my suggestion to the election commission.
So we'll have to write that up. And
that, or it could be a proposed rule by the election commission, that they have the authority to do under the election code.
Is that all, Mr.
that's
Garvin?
clear as mud. Thank you.
Next, I have Councilor Callen.
Thank you, Mr. England, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, to make sure that there's no confusion, I did ask for a constitutional amendment proposal, but not for a special election.
Right.
And I know from my perspective, I've had lots of lots of constituents ask for this, because there is a portion of Rogers County which people assume is Cherokee Nation, and it's not. And people right across the border and such that didn't pay attention, good, bad, or indifferent, and they've asked for an opportunity to re-register. But ultimately, and therefore I think I have an obligation to consider bringing it forward for the Cherokee people to vote on, and especially if there's no additional cost and we're just adding it to the ballot of an existing election, I think it's important to give the Cherokee people another opportunity to look at that issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, Councilor Hoskins.
Yeah, I kind of along the same lines as Councilor Count Watts. I haven't really made up my mind on this issue, but I can tell you, living up northern part of Cherokee Nation, from where I sat, it was not effectuated very good. It wasn't implemented very good, this provision of the Constitution, and so a lot of folks paid attention, but there just wasn't reasonable time, and it was a bit confusing for some people. So I think that's maybe the reason to look at it again. But one thing to bear in mind is that even if we do nothing forever until the Constitution changes, if you're under the age of 25, unless I'm reading it wrong, Todd, you tell me if I'm wrong, if you're under the age of 25, you can still choose to get into a district. So we're going to have an entire generation of voters who could make this choice even if we do nothing.
Right.
And that may be a reason to do nothing. But I guess we'll wait and see another day to debate it even further.
Correct.
Thank you.
Jody, oh, I've got Jody next.
The ones that live in Adair County, if they live on the border, they're going to send in, just like the state, they're going to send their voter registration in, and the election commission's going to assign them a polling place, right? A precinct.
Yes.
They're not going to get to say, well, I live in Barron, but I'm going to vote down here in Stillwell.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
You will be assigned a polling place within the district in which you live.
Okay.
Okay.
Physical address, that's what I was curious about.
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I would like to discuss the Section 21C voting by districts.
Okay, I have one more counselor.
No, and actually it does relate to 21C.
Okay.
I think neither the Constitution nor 21C addresses the issues of a tribal citizen moving outside the Cherokee Nation into away from the nation, as to whether they have the option of electing to continue to vote in the district in which they moved from. I think it only addresses people living outside the nation at the time, but it doesn't address anyone that leaves the Cherokee Nation. And those people may want to elect to continue voting where they have in the past. And like I said, it's not addressed either place, so we may want to take a look at addressing that issue.
Yes, Janelle?
Well, I think there's a need for this. It may cause a lot of confusion, but there was a terrible lot of confusion when people got ready to vote and they lived over in Fort Smith and they had always voted at Muldrow. Maybe they were sent a notification by the registration department, notifying them, but maybe they had moved or something and they didn't get it. And they, like I said, they didn't pay attention till the last minute. It was time to vote, and then they went over and they went ahead and voted at Muldrow, and they filed a protest ballot. Well, it got thrown out, because their vote didn't count. And so there's a lot of people out there that I think they're aware of it now, but they weren't aware of it then, but that would like to re-register to vote where they always had.
That all, Ms. Fulbright?
That's all.
Okay. From the minutes of last month's meeting on Section 21C, voting by district, where it begins, a resident registered voter, and resident was stricken by friendly amendment. Is that correct? That's what my notes that I had read said. A registered voter who has moved to a new district or who wishes to change precincts, and that the language "or who wishes to change precinct" was deleted. Is that correct? May re-register for a new district. Now you put in the word "shall." Is that correct? I purposely would. I would. Consider leaving it at may, because they don't have to do anything, but if you want to vote, you may re-register for a new district in or precinct on or before, but not after the last business day, etc., etc. Now, the original amendment was to strike "in a non-resident voter who wishes to change district in or precinct." The reason that is deleted is that under the new Constitution, a non-resident voter doesn't get to change. The 25-year-olds get you always get one shot, and we've already talked about that. But I guess the purpose of these two amendments is to delete the language about non-resident voters changing, because that's not part of the Constitution anymore. So, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that sections 21C, 3 and 4 be adopted, because it brings it into line with what the 1999 Constitution says.
Do I have any comment?
I move for its adoption.
Second.
Is there any questions?
Did we leave that word "shall" in there for May? Is that what we did?
Well, right now it's shall. If you want to change it back to May, that's up to you. But it's
Friendly amendment.
And I will leave it as May. Pardon?
Friendly amendment to go back to May.
Yes.
You accepted that, Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Your second.
Yes.
Did I see your hand up, Councilor Baker?
Yes. Is there any issue with the timing as far as, we sit here and talk about it, that March is a fine date, but does that cause any issues, or would you perceive any issues caused, to get somebody turned around, notified, stamp of approval, and, by the time that the, election is held?
This is language that was in the previous act. I remember when we last did election reform, the timings were greatly discussed, and we had election commissioners come in here.
Right.
That is the language that we settled on back then. I didn't mess with it, but obviously, when the election commission is formed,
Right.
which should be by the end of this month, that'd be a question to ask them.
To your knowledge, there wasn't any big hubbub, you might say, or any cause for change at that point based upon the timing that is designated in this amendment?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of this, 21C? 3? Are we doing 3 and 4 at the same time?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay.
Okay. Then, you passed the, some, cleanup amendments, as I would say. Section 38 was tabled, and it dealt primarily with anonymous campaigning. So if we could turn to section 38, or no, excuse me, pardon me, 52. Which is titled, well, that doesn't G and Hall either. Okay. Section 52, electioneering, deals with creating a new section B. And that section would be all campaign material produced by a candidate or on behalf of a candidate or ballot issue shall have the name and address of the person or committee paying for said material. Any candidate or committee that produces anonymous campaign material or knowingly allows the production of campaign material shall be fined $5,000 and be subject to disqualification. Candidates and campaign committees shall take all reasonable efforts to inform their supporters that such conduct is not allowed. The state of Oklahoma requires any campaign material over a certain size to have a paid for by a committee, paid for by a person. It is to ensure the truth and veracity of campaign materials. There is sanctions and penalties for anonymous campaigning in state elections, and this was a proposed amendment that something be brought forward to the Cherokee Nation to disallow anonymous campaign materials. There is a caveat at the end of it that says candidates and campaign committees shall take all reasonable efforts to inform supporters that such conduct is not allowed, because as we know, we don't control everybody. And someone might, print up something that they think is helping you, and you have no knowledge of it, and you'll have no idea that it's out there because it's out there. So that is the proposed amendment, and whatever questions and debate there is.
Okay, first of all, I have Councilor Garvin.
We kind of touched on this last month, and we decided that yard signs should be excluded. There's just not enough room to put all that information on there. So I would like to continue to exclude that on the yard signs.
What I would suggest is instead of yard sign, put a dimension by which materials would be exempt.
Well,
2x4s.
you'd have a piece of paper,
Hmm?
on a piece of paper like this, you put it on there, but on the sign,
Well, actually, the signs are pretty easy. I mean, you put your Union Bug on there, and pay for by when you're printing it off. I don't think it'd be. I think where you get into trouble is, what if I give out pens? Do I have to pay for by? There are certain things that they're just not feasible to put, pay for by. But business cards, flyers, yard signs, billboards, I think would be pretty easy to put the paid for by deal on there.
Is that all, Mr. Garvin?
I still would like to exclude it on the yard signs.
Mr. Chairman? I'd like to
Next,
see,
I have Mr. Baker next.
I'll yield.
I'd like to see Mr. Hembry bring back language with those dimensions and stuff so we can vote on it next month with that actual dimension language, because we did bring that up and ask for that last time.
Go ahead and I'll go.
Go ahead.
Is the Oklahoma rule concerning disclosure of paid for by, is that in the statute or in the rules and regs, or I'm actually not familiar with that requirement.
I believe it's actually in the Ethics Commission.
I thought it was actually just the opposite,
Okay.
but I could be wrong. I thought actually conventional wisdom is you do have to stick that on there, but in fact there's no, and there may be, but I've always been under that impression. I think this is actually a good idea to the extent we can police anonymous, but I didn't know that Oklahoma had that, so.
I will look it up, but I'm quite positive there's a requirement.
Well, and quite frankly, I don't know how you all do it. Don't know how I do it. You buy signs, they're screen printed, and if my mother buys 50 of them, and I buy 50 of them, it makes it, I put it on the report how it's done, but to put it on every sign, when one screen printing runs it through, they're not going to have a place to put that that Joe Blow paid for this 50, and that my wife paid for the other 50, and that kind of thing. I think it's pretty obvious if it's got your name on it that it's yours. Now, who paid for it that's in a report. That's not on the piece of literature. I think, what this anonymous stuff is about some of that trash stuff where nobody puts their name on it, and you can bet the candidate didn't put their name, that they're not the one that produced it. And I really think that that's what this is about. This is not about my yard sign as who paid for it. I don't think that makes any difference who paid for it. Because I might order them and not know who's going to pay for them until I go pick them up. And I think everyone is in the same boat. And short of going up and magic markering in that this sign was paid for by my mama and this one was paid for by my wife, gets a little ridiculous. And I just don't think that's the intent or the purpose, or that there's any purpose for who paid for my yard sign, or my ink pen, or any of that. There's a place on your report where it says Joe Blow gave you so much money, but there's nothing in the law that says I got to tell you that I bought this number of things. Well, I guess there is, but I do that. Where you say where the money went, where it came from, where it went to. So that's already there. And I really think that the purpose of this is that there won't be literature out there produced against people that is anonymous. And if they want to put it out, then they need to put their name on it, that they take ownership that they think I'm a dirty dog. And, but I think you're carrying it way too far, and Todd, I disagree wholeheartedly. It is extremely difficult to get your screen printers now the Union Bug is different. It really is, because they won't do it without it. But the rest of them, most of them aren't. I mean, especially some of these small Cherokee firms, they're not set up to do the fine print. When they screen those things, they do, one mat, they run it through, make one sign at a time, and there's not a place for them to be able to put paid for by. And like I say, I ordered them when I didn't know who was going to pay for them. And so I think we're barking up the wrong tree there. And I think it's for everyone here and everyone that's going to run in the next election and everything to know, who's going to be paying for the yard sign and such.
Councilor Fulbright?
Well, I do not think it's necessary to put anything on the sign. I think it should refer to letters, printed brochures, literature like that. I know how much confusion anonymous things cause, because it caused me a lot of trouble in the last election. A lot of anonymous stuff went out, and someone at the Schooley County Times took it upon themselves to blame me and printed my name in there, and I was very nice to them and informed them as to who the printer was, and I had no idea who it was, and I didn't act like it made me mad. They apologized, but I just think all printed literature needs to have, paid political ads in the newspaper. But as far as signs, people that make my signs for me, they charge by all the stuff they put on it. And you see the national people, it says Obama out there, it doesn't say who it was paid for, or McCain, or whatever. It's just paid political ads that are in the newspaper, or if you send out a printed brochure or make brochures. But as far as putting it on my fingernail file that I'm passing out, no, I don't want to. But that's the way I feel about it. I don't think signs need paid for, but it just run up the cost of your sign.
Is that all, Councilor?
That's all.
Thank you. Councilor Hoskin?
Instead of paid for by, Todd, what if we said authorized by, and dispense with name and address and put and you could say indicate that it's authorized by, and then a sign which would speak for itself. Don Garvin would be authorized by Don Garvin, but some material slamming Councilor Garvin would have to say authorized by, and maybe his opponent or some committee. Then you don't have to worry about paid for by. So could you craft, I don't know where we're going with this, but if you could craft some language on that.
It's going to be, if it's really anonymous, they're not going to carry it away.
Well, and I think Mr. Baker just touched on a point that I believe that the intent is to try to prevent as much as possible the mudslinging and just pure out anonymous character assassination. That's why in many states, the state of Oklahoma, you're required to put this information on. And I've been involved in political campaigns my whole entire life, and all the signs that we've ordered and put up on various campaigns, they have paid for by the committee to elect blank. That's screened on the sign itself. But be that as it may, I think the intent of the amendment is to, in some way, attempt to curb anonymous character assassination. And if something goes out that's completely anonymous, and if you don't know about it, you don't know about it. But by golly, if you did know about it, and it can be proven that you knew about it or should have known about it, well, that's a campaign. That's a campaign violation. So that's the intent of the amendment, as I understand it.
But, and I'll recognize you. And Tom, my concern is like the brochures and stuff like that we all mail out and everything. If we've got 3 or 4 or 5 donors donating money to that, and say one of them doesn't give you enough to even cover the cost, but you got to contribute their money. How you you gonna put everybody's name on this brochure within there?
No. And that's not the way it works in you know, in Oklahoma, I know in Oklahoma campaigns, you don't have to say this, you know, this campaign was, or this sign was donated by umpteen different people. Your money is donated to you, or it's donated to your campaign committee. Your campaign committee or you write the checks for that, okay? And so it's authorized by you or your campaign committee, not by, you know, umpteen different people. Because, yeah, I mean, you know, it would be unworkable if you had to put all your all the people giving you donations on your signs. It is the money that is given to you as a candidate is given to you or your committee, and it's you or your committee that authorizes that.
Well, and maybe it needs to be, it's illegal to put anybody's name on a flyer except yours. And in other words, if it's a brochure from Bill John Baker, or a sign from Bill John Baker, or a pen from Bill John Baker, as long as it says Bill John Baker and it's paid for by his committee, it's legal. And but if Bill John Baker sends out something that says, you know, Joe Crittenden's a dirty dog, then Bill John Baker needs to put his name on it if he's going to pay for it.
Yeah, as long as he puts his name on it. I mean, you don't want to restrict freedom of speech. If Joe Crittenden is a dirty dog, I should be able to say, by golly, he's a dirty dog. Because as long as I put my name on it, authorizing that, you know, that I stand up for that.
I like your example.
But it's really, I mean, how do we word it for the anonymous junk?
I was trying to get there.
Really
it's hard to do. I was trying to get there, and that's why you had to give some kind of caveat at the end, because there are going to be things that you don't know about. You know, you're going to have overzealous supporters that, you know, or people you don't even know that just hate Joe Crittenden, you know, since he's jumped into the hopper as the example here. Yeah.
Well, we're using him because nobody would ever say that.
Well, of course, it's such an outlandish example, that's why it fits so well.
Mr. Jordan?
Well, and I think that's the question. I don't think anybody here in this room, or basically anyone that's running, is going to be the one that sends out the anonymous stuff. It might be some overzealous supporter. Now, this doesn't really cover that overzealous supporter when they call Joe a dirty dog and they don't sign it.
Well,
I mean, this really is, it's almost punishing the people that does the right thing instead of getting at the people that's doing the wrong thing.
well, you can make a criminal code, you know, and that'd be hard to craft, but the election code covers the conduct of candidates. We can't really write something that's going to cover the conduct of non-candidates. That's why, you comply with the law here if you take all reasonable efforts to inform your supporters that such conduct is not allowed. You know, that could be telling them, that could be sending out a letter. It could be any number of things. I don't know what that rule is. I mean, that'd be something for the election commission to formulate. But I guess the deal is, do you want to punish in any certain form anonymous campaigning? If you don't adopt the amendment. If you do, let's try to work some language to do it. I mean, I don't know. That could be a committee.
Anonymous campaigning's been around for 100 years. It's going to be somebody better than us that puts a stop to it. I'll make a motion we just delete this whole new Z and move on to the next thing.
Okay.
We got a motion and a second.
We got a motion and a second. Now, more discussion. I recognize Councilor Calvin Watts.
Thank you. I think that if we were going to continue on this path, I was going to discuss like ability to enforce and stuff. I think it's good intentions. I think we probably all want to go there, but I just don't see it actually happening. So we could discuss this for days and more months and not really get anywhere. But I hope if somebody has a better idea that they do bring it forward at some point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Garvin.
I've already seconded the motion. I was going to make the motion, but I'm ready to vote. I call for question.
I have one more on, can you stand and listen to Bill John just a minute?
Yeah, just a second. Well, and in all honesty, this is probably the best thing to do, is not do it, because truth is, the anonymous campaign probably helped me, so
Is that all good?
that's it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The question's been called for. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Hey, Todd.
Well, we got through last month's. Okay. Now, if you would turn to the proposed amendments in your big book here. The first one is section 11. That would be a new 18. Section 11, Cherokee Nation Election Commission, 18. It doesn't say 18 there, but you need to write 18. The law says the law that says now says investigate and audit all financial reports and disclosures required by this act, and to report any violations to the Cherokee Nation prosecutor and/or law enforcement. Further, the Election Commission has the authority to assess any fines, penalties, or other sanctions authorized by this act. All this amendment does is simply delete prosecutor and put attorney general. Housekeeping measure.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, passed.
Some page we on.
Okay, that would have, well, since the election code is not numbered. Let's see.
Can you add this page number next time?
Yeah, but that's going to be hard on that one. So this is an old act. Where we are at right now, if you look to the act itself and go to section 14, which is titled Election Service Office. The next amendment we will deal with deals with section D, Administrator.
Can we just go to the first page?
First page.
First page in the book, but in the act, it's right. I was just pointing out where it is in the act.
Where is it now?
Section 14, titled Election Service Office. Okay? This deals with subsection D of that section. What this amendment does is delete the portion where it says the administrator shall be under the direct supervision of the Election Commission at all times said body is in existence, providing that during the times in which no Election Commission is in existence. We delete the words said body is in existence, provided that during periods of time in which no Election Commission is in existence. Those words are deleted. The reason those words are deleted now is that under the 1999 Constitution, the Election Commission is now a permanent office, and there will be no times in which they are not in existence. And it also deletes the terms be under the direction and supervision of the Council Rules Committee, because it will always be under the direction of the Commission. That was the intent of that amendment.
Is that the only change?
Yeah, that's the only change, and again, it's I believe that it is necessary because of the new Constitution.
Any comments on that? Do we need a motion to accept this?
I would, yeah.
Do I hear a motion? Have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any questions? No questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, passed.
Okay, going to the next page of the proposed amendments. looking at section 12. And actually,
Mr. Chairman, this is actually something that I drafted. I could probably point you to the specific.
Okay.
It should have read 12, C, a new paragraph, which will be a new subparagraph 12. And it just adds an additional, section 12, part C talks about the duties of the precinct board. And then in the current act, we have number 1 through 11, which sets forth the various duties. This would add an additional duty. So if you look in the actual act under section 12, part C, where it says duties, again, 1 through 11, very last paragraph, to return unused ballots, spoiled and mutilated ballots. So there'd be an additional paragraph under that. And so this language, moving back to the second page in our book, the additional duty would be to report conduct which appears to the precinct board member based on actual observation or information from another person to violate section 52 of this act to appropriate authorities. And the point here is to empower these precinct watchers to, if they get information that there's electioneering, or if they see electioneering, to report that. And this is just anecdotal evidence, but in several elections in my neck of the woods, my impression's been that the precinct workers feel maybe a bit intimidated, that they don't have the power to pick up the phone and call the higher-ups and report. And really, they're the front-line people that can see whether there's unlawful electioneering. And so this new paragraph 12 would make it crystal clear, I think, that they have the power to report violations of our electioneering provisions. So that's really all this amounts to, Todd.
Councilor Watts?
Mr. Chair, and I have the similar concerns, but I know that there's policies and procedures concerning both watchers and the different structure of the pseudo-volunteers at the polls, so that they minimize confusion and obstructions at the polls with, I think, number of cell phones and things in the polling booths or in the polling area, because this came up, and I thought about it last election, so I want to take action on this, but I think there may be a little bit more to it with how the use of cell phones, and we should be cautious about how we word it in opening things up, maybe. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, if the concern is that this would create a situation, if I could pose a question.
Sure.
Is the concern that if you put this in, that it may result in these volunteer poll watchers picking up their cell phone every 5 minutes to report what appears to them to be a violation? Is that the concern?
Yeah, and how would we control them taking calls, and who are they calling?
Well, I think it's a good question. I think that the Election Commission is certainly going to have the authority to adopt rules and regs to implement these laws, and I don't think there's anything. I think if they adopted rules and regs which regulated the chain of communication, I don't think that would run afoul of this provision. And if we need to add language that empowers them to do that, I suppose that's fine. But I think as worded right now, this proposal, I think that the Commission could still adopt some regs to implement this, and those regs could specify the chain of communication. So, I think the Commission's capable of recognizing that potential problem and avoiding it. I don't think we need to legislate it that precisely, but I am welcome to any suggestions.
Madam Chair, thank you. And I think we'll always be surprised by how people interpret and what happens at the polls sometimes, and it's never going to be an ideal situation, no matter what effort we put into it. But I think if we're doing it now and the Election Commission's finally in place, right, or we haven't got a fifth yet, I think that as soon as they're in place, they need to review these to make sure that we haven't inadvertently done something. I guess we haven't done something, we're still in subcommittee, but they need to be given an opportunity to come over and speak to anything before we fully implement changes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hoskin, are you saying leave it rather general the way you can have it here, let the election commission come up with the policies and procedures in order to implement this.
That's right. I mean, I think if they adopted a rule which says, to report electioneering, here's the procedure. The head watcher, if there is such a position, would be the one responsible for. And if an individual board member reported it to the head watcher, they will have fulfilled their obligation under that section. So that's how I would envision it going forward.
Yeah, so her concern could be procedural, you could handle it in a procedural manner rather than legislative.
I think so, and I think if we pass this out of our subcommittee, and I'm completely open, I think it's a great idea to bring the commission in to evaluate our near finished product, but, so I would hope we would adopt this, and then we can, keep evaluating it as the whole act evolves.
I was just going to reiterate what Mr. Hoskins and Ms. Brady had already said, that it's one of the duties of the Election Commission to promulgate the rules to carry out this statute. So,
Was it appropriate at this time to pass this?
I would recommend that if the subcommittee is in favor of it, go ahead and take a vote on it. If it passes, it'll go on to full rules, in which time we will have a seated Election Commission that will have the opportunity to review all of the changes.
And I hear a motion.
So moved.
Second?
First, second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, passed.
Okay. The next amendment, proposed amendment, is Section 11, Cherokee Nation Election Committee. That would be subsection E, which deals with the meetings. The purpose of this amendment is to allow the Election Commission to go into executive session for all the reasons under the Freedom of Information and Rights of Privacy Act of the Cherokee Nation. It's more of to bring all the laws in uniformity. So instead of having just the specific reasons stated in the Election Commission, you delete all that specific language, and you just say that this commission can go into executive session for the same reasons that fall under the Freedom of Information Act. That way, you don't ever have the opportunity of your election code saying something and your Freedom of Information Act saying something else. It's more of just a more uniformity of law issue, and that's the basis for that.
Any questions on that? Okay.
Move to approve.
The second?
Second.
Have a second? Any question? No question, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, passed.
Okay. The next one again is Section 11G, removal of Election Commission members. And here it states out how an election commissioner could be removed. These are the same requirements that fall under our removal of an elected official or appointed official act. What I've done here is change Judicial Appeals Tribunal to Cherokee National Supreme Court. And I'm seeing if there is any other change. No, the other underline and deletion was already approved in the act. So that's the only change here, is the changing the JAT to Cherokee Nation Supreme Court housekeeping measure.
Tom, give me an example of number 7. It says violation of any law of the Cherokee Nation. Are we adding that would be a felony in the state of Oklahoma?
We're not adding that. That's already in the act
It's
itself.
already in there, so
So if you want to delete that, you would want, but
what was the purpose when they put that in there? I'm just trying to understand what. It seems to make sense, violation of any law of the Cherokee Nation, and stop there. So I'm trying to understand why they would add that word.
if I remember correctly, is that that you you do an act, not just a misdemeanor, if you violate the Cherokee Nation code, but it would be something, that would qualify as a felony in the state of Oklahoma, that's what you would get at. I can't remember, it's been several years, the purpose for that exact language. I'd have to look it up in the minutes, but, to be honest with you, I just can't remember.
That on you, Tyler?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out why we don't just stop there. Why we don't just say if you violate any law of the Cherokee Nation, then you might be asked to step aside because they need to be above any, they need to be on a level way higher than everyone. So if they violate any law, should we not think about their removal? Instead of just saying it's only the laws that are harsher. Not the simple ones. If you just violate a simple one, let's say you just run over somebody and don't kill them. So the one where you didn't kill them is a misdemeanor, but if you kill them, it's a felony. So I'm just trying to think, why is it any less important? You still ran over them.
I think the reason being here is that if we just leave it right at violation of Cherokee Nation law, maybe it's the marshals at a roadblock giving you a ticket for not having, a seatbelt buckled. I don't,
But that's a state law, and that's less than a felony.
But,
Go ahead, man.
but they can write you a ticket on the complex here for speeding, is one example. And I don't think going a little bit too fast down this little side road ought to raise to the level of being dismissed.
Well, and that's why you have the word may be removed instead of shall. Just, I would have thought for that purpose.
What I would recommend, Mr. Jordan, is that we go ahead and pass the housekeeping measure, but obviously we're going to be meeting again on this, and that you and I get together to see if we can't shore up some language, on amending that, because I didn't touch that part of the language because it's already involved.
And are we going to be convicted, or are we just going to, somebody thinks we violated it?
Violation doesn't mean conviction.
No, it doesn't mean somebody thought you did it. Doesn't mean you did it.
That's why we have the word may.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it says any violation. Well, have you violated it when they write you the ticket, or have you violated it when they convict you?
Usually it says upon conviction.
Well, and maybe that's what it needs to say,
But yeah, we can visit that issue.
Do I hear a motion to accept this and work on it later?
I'm moving to table, and let's come up with some better wording and think this through a little bit.
Second.
Got a second?
Second.
Got another second? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Hearing none, passed.
Okay, the next amendment deals with the definition section, which is section 3. And it deals with, not section 3. And it deals with the definition of election period. And it says it's section 3, those 3A definitions, and we're looking at number 13, which says election period. Election period shall include the primary election and the runoff election. This might be just plain grammatical, but just as a point of clarification, I put up there of a general election because I just basically, because the primary election and the runoff election are two components of a general election. And I just thought that made the law read more clearly. If I'm wrong, tell me. I'm not an English major. Jack, I know you work with language pretty good. Should it say a general election or?
It wouldn't wouldn't apply to a special election.
No, see, it says election period. Election period shall include the primary election and the runoff election of a general election. Okay, now you're calling for a, would put general or special election.
If we leave it off, it could apply to either one.
So should we leave it off?
I would say so.
Okay. Just, there goes my attempt at English. So deferring to better minds, let's just go ahead and defeat this amendment. From what I'm hearing, is it's not necessary. I thought it read better if you put general election, but that's just me.
So we need a motion.
I move thumbs down on this one.
Yeah. Okay.
And a second on that thumbs down.
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thumbs down is good too.
Okay. All right, so 13 stays the same. And definitions, number 18, changing non-resident registered voter to at-large voter. The reason to change that term is in the 1999 Constitution, we consistently use the term at-large voter or at-large district. Now, that just to clarify any confusion, that when we're talking about a non-resident registered voter, we're talking about an at-large voter. That's the purpose of that.
Mr. Baker?
Does it need further clarification? Because you can be a non-resident or an at-large voter and be registered in the district. And you know what you mean?
Yeah, and then that's the purpose of coming forward. We need to clarify it more. You know, maybe we do.
I mean, I think at-large would be, maybe, that might do it, because that would be just the ones that were voting for Jack and Julia. But I just wonder if we need another section for those that live outside the boundaries that have chosen districts within the boundaries as a definition.
Yeah, that's probably what we need to do is change this to at-large voter, and then have a whole new definition of non-resident registered voter, which means someone who has made the declaration constitutionally to have picked a district within the jurisdictional boundaries.
Oh, maybe we need to add a 19 or something.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I'm going to add a new definition, 29, of non-resident.
Madam Speaker down there.
Yes, sir. In residence, I'm assuming that means permanent residence and not summer residence.
Well, it's going to be residence as you, as defined by the election commission, you know, by which you are registered. So that's going to invariably mean. Yeah, it's going to invariably mean it's going to be a permanent residence.
Could we call them non-resident registered voters if they're registered within Cherokee Nation? Because resident registered voters means under 26 means a person whose residence is inside the jurisdictional boundaries of the Cherokee Nation at the time he or she registers to vote. A non-resident registered voter would be one whose residence is outside but has elected to vote within the jurisdictional boundaries.
And we use those words or table it until it gets open.
What I would recommend would be, let's go ahead and change one of them to at-large. And then we come up with a whole new definition for these people, whether we call it non-resident registered voter or something else, as a new definition, 29.
And I move that we approve number 18 as written as the definition of an at-large voter.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, passed.
Okay, amendment number, the next amendment is dealing with section 5, representation by district. And what this does is, it's a housekeeping measure. It is to officially bring the code up to date to Legislative Act 1408, which you already passed and created the 15 districts.
Councilor Hoskins.
I wonder if we want to take this opportunity to be consistent on our districts where we use either directional or numbers, because I couldn't remember where that left. I wasn't sure if we actually came to a conclusion on whether to use directionals or numbers. I couldn't remember.
Well, in the final act, there was only Delaware County used the numbers. Everyone else used directions.
And I really intended to use the north and south on that too, Tom. I had intended to use north and south, and I don't know why I said okay, 1 and 2.
So do you want to change, right now would be the opportune time if you wanted to change Delaware from 1 or 2?
Well, yes, I want to change that to north and south, but also, it looks kind of not right when you go down and look at it. Yes, to answer your first question, yes, I want to change that to north and south, if it's okay with personnel. The other thing I want to bring up is, if you look at that, you got District 8 is Delaware, then District 9 is Craig, District 10 is May, then District 11 is Delaware. Again, I would like to have those two together, like District 6, District 7, District 1 and 2.
Or Mr. Hoskins on that.
Was there a reason for that?
Mr. Hoskins.
I can address that. I think there's two things on the balance here. One is to make it line up right numerically with the counties, and the other is respecting the historic identification of a part of Cherokee Nation. So that's why I was pretty adamant about keeping District 9 as Craig. There's different factors to consider, but I think if you weigh, what folks are used to as opposed to what looks right as far as how it lines up numerically, I go with the former.
Todd, I have one question. Our districts are not on here.
Oh, you've been disbanded. I'm so sorry to... They're not?
No.
There's only 11 districts.
There should have been Tulsa County.
Oh, she left off the whole second page on, okay. No, okay, I will make
Or it
that.
should be Tulsa County and then
Yeah,
up in
okay.
Washington County, Keeler.
I will make that correction. I apologize.
Tulsa County.
Because, there's a whole page that had been...
Whatever number's left.
13, 14.
Is there any more?
District 12, 13, 14, 15.
Rogers.
Rock. Ms. Watts, is your district on here?
No.
You want to add it?
Well, of course I want to add it. I think it's just a matter of the paperwork being provided to us.
Yeah, there was a whole...
It's been in the past.
There's been something that's been left off, and I apologize, but, it's been in previous drafts of this.
Mr. Baker?
Would now be a good time to add county after Cherokee East. I don't even think we're North Carolina. And, but Cherokee County East, and I'm assuming finding what's Cherokee County West.
Okay.
Should I say Tulsa County North?
North Tulsa.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, now
Discussion. I also would like to have Delaware County on that also.
Got it.
I'll accept that amendment.
Thank you.
Then we want Craig County, Mays County? No, okay.
No.
Mr. Hoskins.
I was going to say no because my district has 2 counties in it.
Right.
Okay.
You want to add that yourself? Is that yourself?
Any other changes?
Call for the question.
Okay, the question's been called. All in favor? All opposed? Hearing none, passed.
Mr. Chair, is it appropriate at this time, maybe we move to adjourn?
Whatever you want, Deputy Secretary.
I don't know if it's one, I think it'll take a vote. I make a motion to move to adjourn.
I second.
You got that already out. Good work today.